Hey, thanks for stopping by. My name is Tyler, and it's here. I scheduled the AZ-104 exam. I take it on February 10th, and it is currently February 1st. So I've got just about 9 days left to prepare. I wanted to hop on and make a relatively short video talking about why I'm so worried for this exam in particular, how I'm going to spend my next week or so preparing, and then what my approach is going to be for the test itself. I'm going to start things off on kind of a negative note. I have to be honest, I'm pretty worried about taking this exam. I've heard it described as a mile wide and a mile deep. And based off the practice tests I've done by Tutorials Dojo, Measure Up, the Microsoft Learn ones, all sorts of different practice tests, I would tend to agree. There is a lot of different services covered, and the depth at which you are expected to know these services is pretty deep. Very nitty gritty questions like that, where if you don't know one little tiny detail of a service, you have almost no hope of getting the question correct. And when you combine the sheer amount of content you're expected to know with kind of the tricky way Microsoft likes to ask questions in their exams, that's a recipe for a really, really difficult test. On top of that, the questions are not always one sentence questions. A lot of the times you're dealing with case studies or questions that are a couple paragraphs long, and you have to pick them apart and find the details that matter and ignore the ones that don't. So, lots of very intricate questions and not a ton of time to complete them. So now with the negative part of the video out of the way, talking about how worried I am for this exam and just how difficult the exam is, I want to go over how I've spent the last couple weeks preparing since the last AZ-104 video I did, and then I want to touch on what I'm going to be focusing on in this next week before testing day. So since my last video, I've spent most of my study time going through the Tutorials Dojo practice tests. I did also go over the Microsoft Learn practice test as well. And throughout all of those extra practice tests, I went ahead and expanded my AZ-104 notes document I mentioned in the last video. And I actually went ahead and finished it. This thing is 119 pages long. There is a crazy amount of content in it, but it is all done, and once I pass this exam, I will be sharing it with you guys. So notes are done. I've gone through the Tutorials Dojo practice tests, I think twice now, and I also did my first Measure Up practice test today. Now, I didn't do amazing on this practice test, I'll be honest. I believe I got a 63, maybe a 62 on it. However, these Measure Up exams are known to be a little bit harder than the real exams, and they don't offer any partial credit, which means you can have a 4-part question, and if you get 1 out of 4 responses wrong, you get all 4 wrong. So the Measure Up exams are very, very difficult, and I was okay with the 63. All right, so now that we're all caught up on how we've spent the last few weeks studying, let's go over the plan for the next 9 days. So the idea is pretty much practice tests, practice tests, practice tests. So I'm going to go through the Measure Up exams until I'm able to pass one, and probably until I've seen every single question as well. I think if I'm able to pass one of these Measure Up exams that are known to be super, super difficult, it puts me in a good place for the actual exam. Following the Measure Up exams, I am going to go ahead and head back to Tutorials Dojo and get through as many practice tests over there as I can as well. They are the #1 recommended practice tests for this exam, so I definitely want to hit those one more time before I walk into the testing center. And speaking of testing day, let's talk about the plan for the actual date of the exam. So I already have my testing center picked out. It is the same testing center I've used for every single one of these certifications, other than the 2 from Linux Foundation, because those have to be taken remote. If you're new here, that is International IT Solutions here in Denver, Colorado. It's my favorite testing center. It's very low key, it's super small, and I feel like it helps my testing nerves not going to a giant testing facility. For the exam itself, the approach is going to be skim the question first. So not like the big paragraph of details at the top. Read the question first, read the details of the question, and then answer to my best ability. If I don't know the answer or I don't think I can figure it out in a timely fashion, I will make a educated guess, flag it, and move on, and just forget about it. The reason that I'm taking that approach is one thing I hear a lot, and I've read a lot about the AZ-104, is you will be very, very pressed for time. And the last thing I want to do to myself is take too long on the first 30 questions and have 15 minutes to do the last 20 and have no hope of giving good educated guesses on the last 20 questions. And that's pretty much everything. That's everything I plan to do for this exam. I'll make a video going over every single resource I've used and everything I did for the exam preparation after I pass it. Really hoping I pass it on the first attempt, of course. If not, I don't mind doing a retake. I think failure is a very important part of the learning process, so if we have to retake it, it's not a huge deal, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. As always, thank you very much for watching. If you've taken the AZ-104 and you have some advice, tips or tricks, or last-minute study recommendations, please drop them in the comments below. I read and respond to all of my comments, so it will be very, very appreciated. Other than that, if you want to follow my degree-free journey through the tech industry, of course, subscribe. But thank you guys very much for watching, and wish me luck.